Alright, you guys. Hold on, I think my door's open. We just made it home. It wasn't open actually. I could just hear my car running. But yeah. Hold on. Okay, yeah, it's not open. I had to check twice, but man, you guys. Oh, the window's open. I'm like, okay, bro. I rolled down the window, but I didn't even realize I didn't roll it all the way up. My mistake. We just got home. Calves, hams, glutes, calves, glutes, hams destroyed. Great session, man. I feel great. I got smoked. We smoked every single muscle we hit today. We smoked our calves, we smoked our hams, we smoked our glutes. I got destroyed. I feel great though. I feel great. I went and I put it all out there. I left it all out on the table. Pushed myself as hard as I could. I imagine I'm a towel, right? I'm a wet towel. I wrung it out. I squeezed every last drop out of myself. So anytime I do that, I feel great. I feel great walking out of the gym. I feel great after the gym. It's a great feeling, to push yourself to the absolute limits. And this is only one aspect, the gym, but there's multiple ways to do it. Mentally, doing something you're scared of, doing something you're afraid of, facing your fears, overcoming self-doubt, whatnot. But man, I was listening to some music, you guys. I was listening to some music on the way home. Just some hype music, some music that gets you in your bag. It makes you feel like you can fucking conquer, like you can win. And I just want to share with you guys. I just want to share with you guys some of the thoughts I was having on the way home. Because when I listen to a certain kind of music, that talks about like making it and like succeeding and doing it. Basically, kind of like the come up, and once you've came up, because nobody wants to talk about the come up. Nobody focuses on the come up. Nobody wants to go through the come up. Through the struggle. The grind. Nobody wants to talk about the path. The path. Everybody wants to experience the destination. The end goal, the wins. Everybody wants to see the success stories. People only clap for you once you've made it. Once you're at the top, that's when they want to support you. When you don't need their support. Once you've made it. Once you're undeniable. But you only ever get there by going through the struggle. Going through the grind. Starting at the bottom, and climbing your way up. Forcing your way to the top. Forcing your way to success. To the point where you're inevitable. You're undeniable. You're winning. You're winning. A lot of people will say you've made it. You might even feel like you've made it, and that's when people clap for you. That's when people cheer you on. That's when people want to give you your flowers. And very few people. Just think about it. If there's like 7 billion, 8 billion, however many people there are on Earth, very few people of that 7 billion, let's just say, make it. Make it successful. They make it doing whatever it is that they do. Make it to a high level. Make it to where they have tangible success. A lot of people, they won't even attempt to do so. They'll let go of their dreams. They'll let their dreams be crushed. They'll give them up. They'll let their dreams be crushed. They'll let themselves be crushed. Their spirit, their passion, their dreams, their goals. They'll give all that up, just to live a mundane, mediocre life. A safe life. Because you work your 9 to 5. You try to move up. Maybe you successfully move up a couple times. You get in a higher position than a starting one. And you have steady income. If you If you play your cards right, you play the game, the social game, the work game, you're a good worker. You make some friends, you have some connections there. You'll be you'll be established. You more than likely have a solid spot. You can always get canned, you can always get fired on a whim, because you're expandable. Like, what's the word? You can be replaced. You can be replaced. You can be replaced if you're working for someone else. If they deem someone to be better than you, or if they deem someone to be like a better, what's the word? If they deem someone to be like more cost efficient, or be more efficient, or they deem someone to be able to cost them less and do what you do or similar, they might make that trade-off. So as safe as it is, as much of a safe bet, and it's as much of a clear path that there is, life is random. You can always get canned. You can always spend 20 years, 15 years, 10 years working at a company just for it to shut down, for it to go bankrupt and for you to lose your job. So I just want to say to you guys, to myself kind of, but to you guys, just to speak my thoughts out loud, chase whatever it is that you love, you guys. Chase whatever it is that you love. You got to go into it with the foresight that it's going to be a struggle, and there's going to be doubt. There's going to be doubt from the outside. There's going to be self-doubt. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it, but what's easy? What's easy is playing into the system, taking on a role that's already established, that where to get you. You work this job, you're going to get paid in 2 weeks. You're going to get paid weekly this much. You know what's going to happen. You know what the job entails. You know what you're going to be doing each and every day. Or if you go to school, you study for this, you plan on getting a job for this, you know how much roughly you're going to make. You know what your life is going to look like, right? But you got to bet on yourself, you guys. You got to bet on yourself. You got to follow your passion. You don't have to, but, the way I think, the way I'm living my life, the way I encourage you guys to live your life is to forge your own path, build your own path, build a path that isn't there, that's your path, You can follow paths that are already built, already there, already established, or you can build your own. But your path is not built yet, You got to find what your path is. You got to find it, and you got to build it at the same time, because it doesn't exist. And you don't know what it entails. So that's what I mean when I say you got to build it, but at the same time you got to find it, You got to find the pieces to build it. Because you don't know what it looks like, I don't know what my path looks like, but I'm finding it, and at the same time I'm building it. Because you're like, what's your path? What is my path? I don't know. I can't tell you guys for certain what it looks like, But I'm finding it, and at the same time I'm building it. I'm forging my own path, And it's a scary thing. You got to have nuts. You got to have confidence, You got to bet on yourself. You got to bet on yourself that you'll come out on top, That you're so good at what you do, You're so driven. You're going to put in so much work that there's no way you'll fail, Because that's the truth, You, as a human, your mind is the single most powerful thing you can ever possess, And if you use it, 100%, you put your 100% being, your mind, your soul, your passion, your drive, your work ethic into one thing, there's no way you're going to fail, There's no way. If you put in 99%, if you put in 90%, 80%, and you call it 100, you might fail. You might succeed, but you might fail, and then you can't blame anyone else. But if you put your true 100%, you block out anything that isn't going to help you get there, that isn't going to move the needle, isn't going to push you into that direction, you know, wherever or whatever that direction is for you, whatever it means, you know, it's different for everybody. You're going to make it happen, you know, you're going to accomplish things, you're going to succeed, you know. I mean, I'm not gonna name any names, you know, but I've been seeing someone I went to school with, you know, he's doing music. A couple of people actually, you know, one of my old friends, and you know, someone that I just used to know kind of in passing. One is in a band, and another is kind of doing his own thing, you know, trying to be an artist. He's being an artist, you know, but he's on the come up, you know. They're both on the come up, you know. And you know, my friend that's in the band, you know, he's in the band. His band is really talented, you know. They put out some really good music. They put out some really good music, right, you guys? But they're a small band, you know. They're coming up, and they've been doing this probably like 3 years now. They're nowhere near big, honestly. Like, no, not to downplay them, you know. Their music is great, you know. A lot of their music is great. A lot of it, I personally don't like, you know. Some of it, not a lot of it, but some of it, you know. But you're not gonna like every song from even your favorite artist, you know. But someone else is gonna like it, you know. Every song that you put out as an artist, someone is gonna like, you know. Every piece of work you put out as you could be a painter, you know. Every painting that you put out, there's gonna be people that don't like it, and there's gonna be people that like it, you know, that see the art in it, that see beauty in it. That applies to everything, you know. Not everything is for everyone. Not everyone is for everyone. But I mean, these guys are doing music, right? And I'm bodybuilding. I'm in the gym, you know. I'm bodybuilding. I'm doing something completely different, but I see them putting in the work, you know. I see them putting in their work. I see them being consistent. I see them on the grind, you know. They're doing their thing. They're working hard, you know. They have a vision, you know. They have a vision that they see, you know, and that's why they're doing what they do, you know. That's why they keep showing up. That's why they stay consistent, you know. That's why they continue to push forward, continue to put in work, even though they don't have you know, outward recognition, you know. They don't have fame, they don't have fortune. Maybe not yet, you know, because if they keep going at it, you know, one day they might have it, you know. If they continue to push forward and work hard and put their everything into it, you know, it's only a matter of time, you know. And I feel the same way for me, you know. I truly believe in what I'm doing, you know. That's why I'm doing it. And I truly believe if I put my all into what I'm doing, you know, if I put my 100% into it, there's no way I'm going to fail, you know. It's only a matter of time. I can't say how long that's going to be, you know. It might be 1 year from now. It might be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you know. But you have to be willing to sacrifice that, you know. You have to be willing to take that risk, you know. You guys have probably seen that meme. If you haven't seen the meme, there's a meme of two guys mining, right? And one is about to strike diamonds, right? And he's turning back around, and he's like disappointed, you know. He's like defeated. He's turning back around defeated, and he's about to strike diamonds, you know. And there's one guy basically just started mining, you know. The diamonds are in the same spot, right? They're mining basically in the same spot, same starting point, and the diamonds are in the same spot, just one's above the other. And the other guy, he's eager, you know. He's eager. You can see the eagerness on his face. The diamonds are further away, but from the outside you could see them, you know. He can't see them, but he's eager, you know. He's eager, and he's chasing to get there eagerly, you know. So he's gonna get there when the other guy was about to get there and he gave up, you know. And it's a meme, you know. It's a meme, or at least it turned into one, you know. It turned into one. But what a lot of people don't realize is that's real, you know. You can actually apply that to life, you know. There's an actual message behind it, you know, whether you see it as just a meme or whether you can understand the message that's underlying, you know. Like, sure, it's a meme, sure, it's been made something funny, but there's a message that you can extrapolate, you know, and take out from it. So, you guys, you know, man, bet on yourself, you guys. Bet on yourself. I know I'm betting on myself, you know. A lot of people, you might not be able to. The people around me, you know, my family, people I used to call friends, they might not be able to see, you know, but it's not their vision, so I can't expect them to see, you know. It's my vision, so it's for me to see, you know. I see the vision clearly. I see the vision. I don't need anybody else to see it, to acknowledge it, to tell me they see it too, you know, because I see it. And I'm putting down building blocks each and every day, you know. I'm building the roadmap, I'm building the steps, the stairway, whatever you want to call it, however you want to look at it. I'm paving the road to get there, you know. And the more of the road that I pave, you know, the more steps I put on the stairway, if you want to look at it like stairs, you know, the more that the outside world, you know, just people in general, you know, my family, people close to me, even people I used to call friends can see it, you know. And I mean, there's gonna be people that don't want to see you make it, you know. There's gonna be people that will try to put you down. There's gonna be people that try to put roadblocks in your way, you know, because by doing that, you know, you're reflecting back to them what they're not doing, you know. They're not chasing something, they're not trying to build something, you know. They might be they might have took a path, you know, that was already built, you know, that was pre-built by society, you know, that's easy to take, you know, it's comfortable, it's foreseeable, you know. It's a scary thing, you guys. It's a scary thing, you know. Sometimes doubt creeps up, you know, self-doubt. Sometimes I question why I'm doing what I'm doing, you know, why I'm chasing the things I'm chasing, if I'll truly make it, you know. But that's what comes with it, you know. And feelings and thoughts are only passing, you know. Feelings and thoughts are fleeting. They come, you know, and you process them, and they pass, you know. If you don't process them, they linger, you know. It'll stay in your head, and it'll hold you back, you know. If they're negative, they'll hold you back, you know. It's all part of the process, you guys. It's all part of the process. Today, I didn't feel like going to the gym, right, you know. I got ready to go to the gym, and then I just didn't feel like it, you know. Procrastination hit me. I wanted to give myself the excuse to not go, you know. I wanted to push my session back, you know. I wanted to say, okay, I'm going to go later. And I did that last night, right, you guys? I did that last night, and you know what ended up happening? I fell asleep, you know. I ended up in bed, you know. I was just laying down for a bit, and then I said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to sleep. I'm going to hit it tomorrow, you know. And had I done that today, maybe it would have happened again, you know. So what did I do? I decided, okay, I don't feel like going. I'm going to get ready anyways. I'm going to start sipping my pre, and then I have no excuse but to go, you know. Pre's going to be kicking in. I'm not going to be sitting at home tweaking off pre, you know. So that's exactly what I did, you know. I got ready, packed my bag, you know, mixed my pre-workout, took a few sips, you know, got some caffeine in my system, and then I had to get going, you know. I had to start moving. And what happened? You know, I got to the gym, started slow, you know, didn't feel too good. And then by the time we started doing, you know, stiff legs with the dumbbells, I smashed 2 PRs, you know. I hit the 130s for 2 sets. Never touched the 130s before in my life on that movement. We got 8 reps, we got 7 reps, both PRs, you know. And then after that, you know, completely turned around, you know. My motivation, you know, my drive, my mindset just switched and did a 180, you know. And I felt ready to do anything, you know, to conquer anything. I felt the excitement, you know. I felt the ambition, the adrenaline, my bad, that I usually feel, you know. And the rest of the session went great, you know. So there was a couple pivotal moments, you know. There was it all started when I decided, you know, I don't feel like going to the gym, but I'm going to go anyways, you know. I'm going to go right now. It doesn't matter that I don't feel like it. because I didn't feel like it, you know, um, just kind of out of laziness, I guess. Or you know, I wanted to give myself the excuse that it was going to be a busy time at the gym. I felt good physically, you know, I felt good mentally. I felt like I could train hard, you know, I wasn't super fatigued. I didn't feel like it was going to be a shit session. So what I do, I started moving, you know, started moving. And, you know, I just drove to the gym, got to the gym. At that point, there's no excuses, you know, there's no turning back. Nothing left but to go inside and start moving, you know, start doing my exercises. And that's exactly what I did, you know. And I had another pivotal moment, you know, when I hit those 2 PRs on dumbbell stiff legs, you know. I hit 2 PRs back to back, you know, and that just boosted my confidence, you know. It boosted my confidence, it boosted my excitement, you know. It was like I got that dopamine, you know. I got the dopamine from doing something I didn't think I could, pushing myself to my absolute limits, you know, pushing myself hard, doing something I have never done before, you know. I got that dopamine, I got that feedback, and it was like a reward, you know. It was like a reward. I started feeling more confident. I started feeling more amped, you know. I wanted to hit more PRs. I wanted to continue that momentum, you know. I wanted to keep that momentum, keep the performance high, keep the momentum high, and finish the session strong, you know, make it an overall great session. And that's exactly what I did. And, you know, that applies to every aspect in life, you know. Sometimes you won't feel like doing something, but you know you should get it done, you know. So the question is, are you going to let whether or not you feel like doing it hold you back, you know? Are you going to let a temporary feeling dictate what you actually do, you know? Or are you going to say, okay, I don't feel like doing this, but I know if I do this, you know, it's going to be something positive. It's going to be something productive, you know. It's going to move the needle in the right direction, and do it anyways, you know. Obviously, you know, we're humans. We're creatures of comfort. If you guys don't know, we're creatures of comfort, you know. It's not natural to want to be in uncomfortable situations, you know. It's not natural to want to get outside of your comfort zone, you know, and to do things that you don't want to do, you know. That's why fat people find it a struggle, you know, to start working out, to start eating differently, because they're so comfortable eating the way that they do and living the way that they do, you know. They got them fat, even though they know being fat is something negative, you know. A drug addict or a drunk, you know, they know that doing drugs or being an alcoholic is bad for them, right? But they're so comfortable repeating that cycle, you know, doing that habit, that it's easier to continue to do it, you know, even if you know it's detrimental, than it is to stop, you know. And, you know, for me personally, you know, I'll be vulnerable with you guys. For me personally, I stopped the drinking, you know. I used to drink. I never really had a drinking problem, but I used to drink, you know, which was detrimental to my growth, you know. It was detrimental to my progress. It didn't push me in any way, shape, or form towards my goals, you know, towards the man I want to be, towards the life I want to live, you know, towards the things I want to accomplish, you know. And if it's not pushing you in a forward direction or upwards, even if it's not inherently, you know, pulling you back or making you regress, it's keeping you stagnant, you know, which is equally just as bad, you know. Staying stagnant is equally just as bad as regressing, you know, because you're not moving forward, and you have that opportunity, you have that time, and you're squandering it, you're wasting it, you know. You might as well use the time that you have, the opportunities that you have every day, every hour of the day, you know, to move forward. But like I said, I'll be vulnerable with you guys. It's not something I'm proud to say, you know, but I want to keep shit real with you guys. You know, my struggle, my last struggle, you know, has been with lust, you know. It's been with lust. Like I said, I gave up the drinking, you know, I gave up smoking weed. That was really my problem, you know, my personal problem. It was smoking weed, you know. I was smoking weed all day, every day. There wasn't a minute of the day that I wasn't high, you know. And if there was, what was I looking forward to? Getting high, you know. The next time I was going to get high. I'm not proud to say that either, you guys. I'm not proud to say that, That's nothing to brag about. I'm not trying to brag or anything. But, I'm being honest, I can be honest about who I was and where I came from, where I've grown from, because I grew from that. I grew out of that. I decided to stop doing those things, and it was hard at the beginning. It was hard, It was hard. I had to go through withdrawals, I was getting irritable, I didn't have an appetite, I didn't feel like myself for a bit, I didn't feel like myself. And, I got sober and I got clarity, I got clarity. I couldn't numb myself. I couldn't get high, I couldn't escape, the problems I had, everything came to me at once, all my insecurities, everything I wasn't happy about in my life, every aspect I felt stagnant in, it all came to me, and I had to face it, I had to face that I didn't know where I was. I didn't know where I was heading, I wasn't happy where I was. I wasn't happy where I was or who I was or who I had been in the past, and all of that hit me at once, and what did I do? I decided to, stay the path, stay sober, focus on building a vision, of who I was going to become, who I wanted to be, who I wanted to turn into, where I wanted to grow into and grow into being, and that's exactly what I did, and it took me time and it was hard, but it's been years now and I've made a ton of growth. I've made a ton of growth, and it's never over, it's never over. I'm in another season of that, I'm in another season of wanting to grow, wanting to leave behind things that don't serve me, things that might, pull me down, make me regress, or even things that are just keeping me stagnant, and right now, as of lately, that's been lust. I've been struggling with lust. When I have free time, when I'm bored, when I'm not doing anything, lust is what creeps into my mind. I want to go sleep with a random chick. I want to go hook up with a random chick that I don't even like. And it's really easy to give into that. It's really easy to give into that. But I have to consciously, for one, accept that this is something I'm struggling with, and that's not how I want to live my life anymore. That's not what I want to do. And it's not going to serve me. It's not going to serve me. It might not necessarily make me regress, or go backwards, but it's going to keep me stagnant. It's going to be a waste of my time. It's going to be a waste of my energy. So I don't need it. I don't need it if it's not adding on to me. And I mean, yeah, at times, I found myself, silencing that voice, and I found myself, trying to find a chick to hook up with, and when that happens, it's like I'm watching myself from a third person point of view. I'm watching myself do something that I don't even truly want to be doing. I'm just doing it out of seeking comfort, out of seeking comfort, trying to find something to comfort me, to kill my time, to kill my boredom, even though I know it's going to be detrimental, and that's a battle between who I am, who I am now, who I'm becoming, and the old me. The old me would sleep with a random chick, that I don't like, that I don't plan on taking serious, I don't even want to be my girlfriend. I would do it, with no second thought. And I wouldn't feel anything about it, I wouldn't think twice about it. But that was the old me, that was the old me. That's not who I want to be, that's not how I want to carry myself. That's not who I want to be in the future. That's not who I want to be right now. So it's a battle, you guys. It's a battle, But, bit by bit, I have to be really conscious. You got to be conscious about these things, You have to face that, I have to face that. I have to face, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what part of me, the old part of me wants to do. But is this going to serve me, Is this going to be positive for me? Is this going to to be a good use of my time? Is this going to be a good use of my energy? Would the man I want to be, would the man I'm becoming do this, act this way? Would he go sleep with a random chick, fuck a random hoe that he doesn't like, that he doesn't care for, just to, get a nut off, just to kill boredom for a night, just to, get a false sense of intimacy, or false sense of comfort, it's kind of different. Sometimes it's pure lust, sometimes it's pure lust and just thinking animalistically, which is stupid, because yeah, we are animals, we are humans, but God said we are distinct from animals, man was created in God's image, no other animal was created in God's image. You know why? Because humans have consciousness, full consciousness, we're not animals. A dog gets horny, it starts humping a table leg, it starts humping another dog, starts humping a human leg. It doesn't know any better, it can't control itself, it literally can't. But as a man, as a woman, as a person, as a human, you have control. You get a thought, you get an impulse, to go sleep with a random chick, a random dude that you don't care about, that doesn't care about you, and you have the choice, to make the decision whether or not to go do that, give into it, or whether to say, okay, I have this impulse, I have this thought, I have this cardinal desire. This is something I want to do, but I'm not going to do it because it's not going to serve me in any way, It's not going to help me grow. It's not going to help me move in a positive direction, move forward, move upwards. All it's going to do is maybe kill your boredom, maybe satisfy, a carnal urge. And when it's all said and done, when you sleep with that random chick, when you sleep with that random guy, and it's all said and done, you're going to look back and you're going to realize you just wasted your time, You just wasted your time. You just wasted your energy on someone that you don't care about, someone that doesn't care about you, when you could have been spending it doing something positive, doing something productive, doing something to help you grow, doing something to help you move towards the life you want to live, towards the person you want to be. It's not easy, you guys. It's not easy. It's not easy, Everyone has a subconscious mind, Everyone has a conscious mind, And you got to choose which one you live from, You got to choose to live from the conscious mind, Because if you don't choose consciously to live from the conscious mind, you're going to end up living from the subconscious mind, It's subconscious. It makes decisions, it thinks, it does things without you thinking about them, without you making the decisions. It makes them for you, It's your animalistic mind. It's your animalistic mind. It wants comfort. It wants pleasure. It wants food. But you're a human. You're a human. Man was made in God's image. We are the only animals with full consciousness. And if you deny that, then you're just weak-minded. If you deny that, you're trying to find an excuse for your weak mind. You don't have any self-control. You don't have any discipline. That's on you, the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth of it. I've lived like that before, I've lived like that before. So I'm not saying this to talk shit on anyone. I'm not saying this to talk shit on you if you live like this or make you feel bad. I can say these things because I'm talking about my older self, and it disgusts me, It disgusts me. It disgusts me in a way, I'm not proud of it. But it is what it is, My past is my past. I've grown from it. It's no longer who I am. It's no longer how I live. It's no longer how I want to live, And, like I said, it's what used to be normal for me, sleeping with random chicks, being okay with hooking up with a random chick that I don't care about, that probably didn't care about me, but even if she did, I didn't care, I didn't want anything besides, some physical pleasure, I didn't see any future with them. I was risking, impregnating chicks that I would never have a relationship with, let alone want to birth my child. I was risking that, which is really stupid. I wasn't even thinking with foresight, just because I was thinking with my dick and thinking about satisfying this carnal urge and carnal pleasure, carnal desire. And like I said, I'm not proud to say that shit, I'm not necessarily ashamed, because that's not how I'm living anymore, but I'm not proud to say that, but it is what it is, that's how I used to live my life. That's the shit that used to be normal to me. And I can say that because I'm proud that I've grown from that. I'm proud that I've left that in the past, I'm proud that I'm working on leaving that in the past. I still struggle, you guys, I still struggle. Sometimes, like, I get bored late at night, and I do just want to fuck a random chick, it sounds stupid. It sounds stupid. I mean, it should sound stupid. Me saying that, it sounds stupid, because I'm like, what the fuck? Why would you want to go sleep with a random chick? I don't even truly want that. What I want, is a partner who is like me, a partner who can be my other half, who can push me to be better, who I can push to be better as well, who will align with me and help me build the vision that I have, that will support me, that I can support, someone that I can truly share something special with, maybe in the future have kids with, start a family with, That's what I truly want, And how can I say that, how can I ever get there if I'm out here, fucking on random chicks, I'm out here risking impregnating a random chick, and then before you know it, I have 2 kids by 2 chicks that I don't even like, that I don't want to be with, And then I have, the responsibility of either taking care of those kids or being a deadbeat, And what does that say about me, What does that say about me, It would be my responsibility, it would be stupid for me to not own up to that if that was the case, I would be a coward, to go and impregnate a random chick and leave her pregnant and have a baby and not be a father, not take care of it, something that I literally created, even if it was out of stupidity, that would be cowardice. So it's better to just not put myself in a situation, in any circumstances, for that to happen, I can see that now. And I'm glad, luck was on my side, to be honest. Luck was on my side, I can't even say God, because God gave me free will, I was the one choosing to do that, to go sleep with random chicks that I didn't even like, that I didn't care for, risking impregnating them. I was the one doing that, I was fully consciously making that choice, maybe even subconsciously, but it's my choice to live subconsciously, it's my choice to live consciously. I've been yapping for a bit, but what I'm saying is real shit. What I'm saying is stuff that I feel is really important, I'm not just talking to you guys, I'm also talking to myself, I'm reflecting. And this is all shit that's really useful, that someone else might not tell you, It's stuff that I myself can use, and I know that somebody else out there can use if they are willing to sit here and listen to it, and willing to not take it as an ego hit, and they're willing to listen, and they're willing to look at themselves if any of this called them out, and they're willing to say, okay, I'm not living right, I'm not living right. This is right. This is true. This applies to me. Something has got to change, something has got to change. That's what it is with me, I had to look at what I was doing, I had to question, what I was doing, wasting my time, sleeping with random chicks, that I don't care for, hurting random chicks' feelings, because they might have wanted a relationship with me, or they might have liked me more than I liked them, you know, when all I liked was their body, you know, all I wanted was their body, all I wanted was to use them for sexual pleasure, you know, and I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of that, you know. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud to say that, but I'm also not ashamed, you know. I mean, I might be a little bit, but I'm not ashamed because I've grown from that, you know. That's the past. It is what it is. I can't change it, but what I can do moving forward is correct myself, you know, and not continue to do those things that I'm ashamed of. You know, why would I want to live a life or my life in a way that I'm ashamed of, you know, that I'm guilty of, that I wouldn't be proud if, you know, all my loved ones or the world saw, you know. That's no way to live your life, you know. You should live your life in a way where you can show everything about your life, you know. People can see your thoughts, people can see what you do, and you have nothing to hide, you know. There's no skeletons in my closet, right, you guys? I'm putting it all out there for you guys, you know. I'm not perfect, you know. Nobody is perfect, you know. No celebrity, no rich person, no person as smart as they may be, as philosophical as they may be, you know, as perfect as a life as you might think they have, or as they might portray, you know. Nobody is perfect, you know. Everybody has their own struggles, you know. Everybody is fighting their subconscious mind, you know. Everybody has their own problems, you know. Everybody has their own bad habits, their own things they struggle with, you know. And if somebody tells you that they don't, then they're lying, you know. Even if you have your shit figured out, you know, even if you're disciplined, even if you have self-control, you know, those things will creep up, you know. Those things will creep up, you know. I'm telling you guys, because I'm disciplined, right? I'm disciplined. I have self-control. But, you know, lustful thoughts will creep up, you know. The urge, the want to drink sometimes will creep up, and that's not to say it's a bad thing, you know. That's not to say drinking is a bad thing inherently, you know, or even having sex inherently is not inherently a bad thing, you know. I'm not saying these things are evil, but are these things going to serve you? Truthfully, are they going to serve you? Or are they going to help you grow? Or are they just things that are going to make you feel good in the moment and that you're going to want more of afterwards? All it takes is for you to give in once, you guys. You give in once and you start a cycle, you know. You start a cycle. You give in once, it feels good, you want more. And you're going to be trying to fill a never-ending, you know, a never-ending hunger, you know. You're going to be trying to satiate something that you can never satiate truly, you know. So, would you rather have that be with something positive or something negative, you know? I'm trying to be the best version of myself, you know. I'm trying to be the best version of myself. I'm trying to live my life to the fullest. I'm trying to be the best man, the best, you know, David that I can be, you know. I'm trying to die peacefully, knowing that I gave my life my all, you know, and I lived up to my fullest potential that I could, you know. Am I ever going to be perfect? No, I'm never going to be perfect, you know. I'm never going to be truly satisfied and say, okay, I've maxed out my stats in life, you know. I've done everything I can. I'm the most perfect man on earth. No, that's never going to happen, you know. But the pursuit is going to be never ending, right? But I'm going to be on that never ending pursuit, you know, because at least it's going to be something positive, you know. At least I know it's going to be something positive, something for the better of me, you know, something that's going to take me places, you know, positive places, you know. So guys, be mindful, you guys. Live your life consciously, you know. Watch the people you keep around you, you know. Watch the environments you spend your time in. Watch your thoughts. Watch your impulses, you know. Watch all of that shit, you know. You're in control, man. You're in control. You're in the driver's seat of your life, for better or for worse, you know. Take ownership, man. Take accountability for everything good and bad in your life, you know. Decide to live a good life, you know. Decide to win, you know, decide to make something of yourself, you know. That's about all I got to say to you guys, man. I've been yapping for 45 minutes, but I've been saying some real shit, you know. I've been saying some real shit. I've been speaking with so much clarity, you know. I have so much clarity. My thoughts are flowing. I'm in flow state right now. I might add this in at the end of the video. I might make this its own video, you know. I don't know what I'm gonna title it, but you know, what I'm saying is important shit, you know. It's useful shit. I'm sure someone out there could use it, you know. I know for a fact I could use it, you know. I could probably watch this back in the future, and even though it's just me talking, you know, I can listen and hear that I'm saying some real shit, you know, that I might need to be reminded of at times, you know, or that I might need to just refresh in my mind, you know, to know where I'm going, you know, to know why I'm doing what I'm doing, you know, to know where I'm headed, to keep on the path, you know. I love you guys. If you're watching this, I love you, man. I don't give a fuck if I don't know you. I love you. I say that because I love myself, you guys, and I want the absolute best for you. If you're watching this, I hope you want the absolute best for yourself, because I know I want the absolute best for myself, you know, and that's what I'm going to work towards. That's what I'm going to work towards, and anything that isn't going to help me accomplish that isn't going to push me towards that, you know, I'm going to cut off. You know, I don't need anything that's going to hinder me or even keep me stagnant. I don't need that shit, you guys. You guys don't need that shit either. So yeah, man. Appreciate your life, man. Appreciate each and every day, every hour of the day, you know. It's all an opportunity for you, you know. Everything, every hour, every minute, every day you're alive is an opportunity, man. So don't squander it. I'm going to see you guys on the next one. All right? Peace.